A very good morning, students. This is a video from the chapter on general anatomy, that is skeletal system, and this is a very basic lecture for the gross structure of an adult living long bone. That means in this video, in very short, I am going to tell you the gross anatomy or structure of an living long bone, that is from an adult, okay, not a developing bone. I think I have already just uploaded a video for the developing long bone. This is for adult long bone which has completely developed, okay, and the living long bone. Why I am using the word living? Living means the bones which most of the student in their initial stage, they think that the bone is a dead structure, but you should realize that the bone is a living tissue. It is a living structure, okay, just like any other part of the body, viscera. Why I am saying that it is living? Because when you will see and study the bone detail later, you will realize that the bone is constantly changing, okay. That means new bone is forming and old bone is replaced, okay, or destroyed, okay. And this is also maintaining its shape. While it is being formed or destroyed, the shape of the bone always remain the same. And bone consists of the various components. It is made up of the cells, that is osteocyte, osteoblast, osteoclast. Like that, many type of the cells are present in bone. There is the intercellular matrix which is made up of the collagen fibers and ground substance which is calcified here. Thus, this indicates that the bone is a tissue which is a living tissue, okay. It is a living tissue. Now if you will see the structure of a typical long bone, we are just dealing with a long bone which we get in the our limbs, upper limb or the lower limb, okay. This, it is made up of the two parts. A part is called as the body. This is the body of a living bone. Now this body has developed ossification wise. If you see that the body develops from the diaphysis, that is from the primary center of the ossification, and at the ends which are broad or knobby, they are the ends of. So there is two ends, an upper end and a lower end. Say for example, this is tibia, so this is upper end and this is the lower end of tibia, and then between the two ends the part is called as the shaft or the body. And the shaft, as I said, develops from the primary center of ossification, and this part is called as diaphysis. But the ends, which are knobby, they develop from the secondary centers of ossification, and that's why the ends are called as epiphysis, okay, epiphysis. Now the epiphysis is the ends of the bone, but at the junction of the diaphysis and epiphysis there is a broad area of the bone. That means an area of the bone which is also expanded, and this area which is between the epiphysis and diaphysis is called as metaphysis. But you should realize that metaphysis is not a separate structure, but it is the part of the diaphysis. Or you may say that the uppermost and the lowermost end of the diaphysis, which comes in contact with the epiphysis or ends, is the metaphysis. Now the metaphysis has a great significance in a developing bone, because this is the site where the cartilage, that is the epiphyseal cartilage, is constantly replaced by the bone. So this is the site for the bone formation. But after the completion of the bone formation, metaphysis, okay, it do not show the osteogenic activity or the bone formation. It remains as an expanded end fusing with that of the epiphysis at epiphyseal line, okay. You must have seen the epiphyseal line when I was just teaching you the ossification of the bone, okay, ossification of the bone. Now the two ends of this bone, they are covered by, in a living bone we are talking of, so the ends of the two upper end as well as the lower end of the long bones, they are covered by a cartilage, which I am drawing here with that of the blue color, and this is called as the hyaline cartilage or articular cartilage. Okay, so this is either hyaline or the, I mean say it is, nature is hyaline and it is called as articular because it is coming in contact with the other, okay, with the other bones to form a joint, to form the joint here. Okay, now if we see this living long bone, then on the outer surface of this long bone, it is covered by a membrane, and this membrane is called as the periosteum. So the membrane which covers completely to a bone outer surface, it is called as the periosteum. Now this periosteum is a fibrous membrane, okay, and it is periosteum. Okay, this periosteum is not covering to the part of the articular cartilage, okay, or where it is the articular cartilage, except that part it is covering to all the bone, okay, all the bone except the articular if you will see a living long bone, then you will see that there are many blood vessels and nerve entering and veins coming out. Now the biggest vessels which go or come out is at the nutrient foramina in the shaft, okay, which is the major blood supply to the bone. Then at the ends you will see also many small pits or depressions or the foraminas, and these foraminas are for the passage of the blood vessels, and now at the epiphysis or where it is massive or it is large, thick. Okay, so many small blood vessels, they enter in the epiphysis or at the ends of the long bone. Now this was a gross structure of a living bone, okay, as seen from the outer surface by the naked eye. But if we just cut a section of this living long bone, say for example in this diagram we have seen a section of the, we are seeing the upper end of the tibia for example. Again here it is covered by the articular cartilage at the where it will come in contact with the femur to form the knee joint. Again it is covered on its outer surface by the periosteum, so I am drawing the periosteum which will be seen, and then you will see that it is made up of two different types of the bone. Okay, shaft is made up of the compact bone, which I am drawing here with the yellow color here. So this is the compact bone here, okay, deep to the periosteum. And this compact bone is compact, and because it doesn't show any spaces by naked eye observation. The other type of the bone which we will get here is at the ends, and this is called as the spongy bone. So these are the sponge, I mean the upper end which is knobby or the massive or expanded, is inside is made up of the bony trabecules, spicules, rods, okay, which are interanastomosing to each other and gives an appearance of the sponge. Okay, so this kind of the bone is called as spongy bone or cancellous bone. Okay, but outer surface of this spongy bone is covered by a very thin layer of the compact bone. Now thus the bone is made up of two different kinds of the bones. One is compact bone, where it is predominantly present in shaft, and ends are made up of the spongy bone. Okay, they are made up of the spongy bone. Now after knowing this, let us see another membrane which is present, and this is lining to a cavity which is present in the shaft or the body. This cavity is called as marrow cavity. Let us see this. This is called as marrow cavity, and this is cylindrical structure, shaft is, and this cavity is also in cylindrical, which is present inside the shaft of the body. Now in the living condition, as we are living, just learning the living structure, this is also occupied by the yellow fibrofatty tissue, not fibro, just yellow adipose tissue, what is called as the yellow bone marrow in adult. while the spongy bones are occupied by the red bone marrow. And bone marrow is a tissue which is helpful, or which whose main function is to produce the blood cells. Okay, so the red marrow in adults are the site for the production of the red blood cell, though the yellow marrow is not producing the blood cell, but in the fetal age this was having the red marrow and then was producing the blood cells. Okay, so and this bone marrow and the spaces, okay, of this spongy bone, they are also covered by a very thin fibrous membrane, which I will draw here with the green color, and this is just lining to the bone marrow cavity here. Okay, and this is called as endosteum. This is also covering to the spaces or bony spicule rods or plates of which are forming the bones. Okay, spongy bone, it is also covered by the and another membrane inside, and this membrane is called as endosteum. Endosteum. The outer membrane was called as periosteum. This is called as the endosteum. So outer surface is covered by periosteum, inner surface of the bone or marrow cavity and the spongy bone cavities are covered by the endosteum. Okay, endosteum structure. Now let us revise what are the parts of a living long bone. It consists of a shaft or body which is placed between the two structure, that is expanded structure called as the ends. Ends are covered by the articular cartilage for formation of the joint. Okay, and this articular cartilage is hyaline in nature. Okay, now the outer surface of a living bone is covered by a membrane called as the periosteum, and this membrane is quite dense, made up of the collagen fibers, and the undersurface of this collagenous layer of the periosteum also has the cellular layer, and these cells, they are actually osteoprogenitor cells. So there are two layers in the periosteum: outer, the membranous layer, which is made up of the these collagen fibers, and inner is cellular layer made up of the cells which are osteoprogenitor cell. It means that these cells, though they are resting cells, okay, in normal condition, but when the need will arise, these cells will change themselves into the osteoblast, osteocyte, like that, which is useful, which are responsible for formation of the bone. So that's why they are called as osteoprogenitor cell. Excuse me. The inner layer is endosteum, which is mostly made up of the epithelial layer, okay, and some little resting on a little connective tissue, okay. Otherwise, it has no fibrous membranous structure, okay. That is endosteum. Now, the marrow cavity, which is a cylindrical cavity in the shaft, it consists of the bone marrow, as I said. In the adult long bone, as we are learning, the marrow cavity and the shaft is a yellow bone marrow, and then at the ends, which is made up of the spongy bone, it is the red bone marrow is there. Now this completes the description of a gross structure which we can see by naked eye of a living long bone in the from outer surface as well as inner section. When you will see a transverse section, this will show a structure like that this is the yellow bone marrow in the marrow cavity. Inside it is just covered by the endosteal membrane, the bone marrow cavity. Outer surface, it is covered by the periosteum, and this is the shaft of the, compact bone of the shaft, which I am drawing yellow. This will be the structure in the transverse section, and this is the structure in longitudinal. This transverse section is passing through the shaft, okay, passing through the shaft. Now then question must be coming in your mind, those who are very fresh student, okay. How does a living long bone differs from a dry bone, which you must have started handling in your osteology classes or demonstration classes? Okay. Now this long bone which you are handling in your dissection hall or in demonstration class is not a living bone. Okay, this is a dead bone, it is a dry bone. Okay, but how does it differs? It differs in many way. Okay, living bone is covered at its ends by the articular cartilage, but your dry bone which you are handling is not covered by articular cartilage. It is though smooth, ends are smooth. This indicates that this smooth area in a living condition was covered by the articular cartilage. No longer it is covered, because in drying process of the bone after removal from the body, this cartilage falls off. Okay, then there is no periosteum in a dry bone, because again it is a living membrane, it also falls. Okay, so without periosteum, without articular cartilage, you are seeing the outer surface of the a living, I mean say a dry dead bone. Okay, dry. And similarly in the bone marrow there is no bone. If you will cut a section of a dry bone, you will see the spongy bone and the cylindrical marrow cavity in the shaft without any bone marrow. That has also drained out. Okay, because it is a fat, it will drain out in the process of the, I mean to say, drying process. There are no blood vessels and no nerves present in the dry bone. So these are the way you can differentiate a living bone and that of the dry bone. So that's why the impression in most of the student to begin with comes that the dry bone which they are handling in the dissection hall or in your classes, they are non-living thing. Okay, this is not, though it is a calcified structure, it is very much a living thing, and it resembles to an organ in living condition, because an organ has various types of tissue, so the bones also has the various types of the tissue. For example, it is made up of periosteum, which is a fibrous tissue. It is made up of the bone marrow, which is the fatty tissue. Okay, then it is made up of the collagen fibers. It is made up of various kind of cells. Okay, osteogenic cells, that is osteoblast, osteoclast. Okay, and then osteocytes. Okay, osteocyte, and there it is made up of, I mean to say, the whole thing is changing. Okay, that means new bones are formed and the old bones are constantly replaced. So this is a indicating that, okay, it has a blood supply, nerve supply, and its special function of protection of the blood cell formation, and just for the attachment of the muscle it provides. So many function can be attributed to a bone. Okay, in the similar way as you can attribute many function to an organ. Okay, so we can say that a bone is not only a living tissue, but it is also similar to a organ. Okay, I hope that you must have understood the basic gross structure of the adult long bone and how to differentiate it from the dry bone. So remove from your mind if your impression is that bone is a non-living structure, or is it is not correct. It is very much living. Okay, it is very much. Thank you very much for watching this video.